Hi, I'm Heather McGowan. Let's talk about why the loneliness epidemic is so hard to cure. So let's talk about some questions we're going to answer. First, we're going to talk about how it's not actually personal, it's structural. What do house sizes, cars, TVs, and smartphones have to do with anything? And is social media helping or is it hurting? At the end of this video, you're going to understand why loneliness persists, because it's engineered into systems that nobody owns. So let's talk about the individual versus the structural. The loneliness epidemic is structural. It's built into our system of housing and where and how we live. It's built into our systems of work. It's built into our entertainment. It's built into our environments. We're going to break it down and look at all of those things. Structurally, let's look at housing in the United States. From 1973 to 2023, the size of the average single-family home grew by 50%. During a period of time slightly longer than that, from the 1960s to current, 5 times as many of us are living in those now larger houses. And if we look at structurally what we do in those houses, in the 1970s, we entertained in our house more than once a month, usually several times a month. It would be backyard barbecue, game nights, cocktail parties. So in the 1990s, it declined by 45%. In the next 25 years, it declined another 32%. So we're seeing more folks living alone in larger houses, but doing less with other people in them. So look at cars. Cars have structured us into society so we don't commute together. We don't run into people on buses and trains and that sort of thing. We're individual cars. 60% of the time, we're alone in those cars. Not long ago, only 6% of grade school kids had a TV in their bedroom. Today, it's about 77%. We're watching an average of 19 hours a week on TV, and usually alone. That's equivalent to about 8 movies. Now let's look at the smartphone, which we're on about 40% of our waking hours. Let's look at how we engage. So we used to do things together, and we were present. So you look at this group of people together in this visual. Now we're with them, and we're performing. We're capturing it for somebody else's eye, for presentation on social media, and we feel an emptiness around that. So let's look at how technology replaces some interaction. So text replaces voice, broadcast replaces belonging, and outrage replaces intimacy. So ironically, although we're more connected, we're less attached. So time alone, you used to think about time alone like somebody sitting quietly, having a cup of tea and reading a book. That was restorative. So now when we're spending time alone, we're often on our phones and we're looking at what other people are doing and we're not there. So we're spending more of our time alone actually having fear of missing out rather than having restorative time alone. So let's look at our decline in social infrastructure. So if you look across things like libraries and swimming pools and public parks, public swimming pools, for example, in the US in the 30s and 40s, and then we filled a lot of them in the 60s and 70s because people didn't want to integrate them. So we saw a rise of private clubs. Doesn't have the same social interaction that we had when we had public places where we'd run into people and we make connections to more folks with whom we had weak ties. That's how we had higher levels of trust. Now we have lower levels of trust. We spend 50% less time hanging out than we did in the 1990s. It's a huge drop in just unstructured free time where you're connected with people, some of whom you're really close to, some of whom are neighbors you didn't know as well. So this is really interesting data. Prisoners get an hour of exercise in the yard in most prison systems. In the UK, 75% of kids don't spend a full hour outside. So in the UK, kids spend less time outside than prisoners. And that unstructured play is really important because that's where you learn your social skills. That's how you learn to negotiate. That's how you learn to connect. That's how you learn to get along with people with whom you might not agree with everything. So one of the things that's really challenging about the loneliness epidemic is it's invisible. You can't see it until it's really evident. It's a contagion in some regards. The more you retreat from folks, the more your social skills decline, the more you feel a threat response when you're interacting with other people because you're presuming they don't like you. It's your social skills atrophy and you actually become on the defensive. When we become lonely, our trust in others declines because we think the worst, not the best of people. And then the other thing that happens with loneliness at the individual level is there's a sense of shame. Not everybody feels this way. I must feel rejected. I might be the only one who feels this way. We don't realize that others feel this lack of connection as well. One of the challenges of the loneliness epidemic is it's structural and it's embedded in so many systems that nobody owns. So it's not the job of the healthcare companies. It's not the job of the employers. It's not the jobs of the school systems. It's not the job of the cities and towns. It's up to all of us. So I give folks a challenge that I call the hello effect. And I realized this myself. I'm working on myself as much as you might be working on yourself. So I realized I came home at the end of one day and I'd done a bunch of errands. I had been on a trip because I'm flying all the time. I'd checked it, been in on a plane. I'd been in a car. I'd been in a hotel. And then I got home and picked up some groceries on the way home. And I realized that if I had lined up all the people I had interacted with 10 other people, I couldn't pick out who I had interacted with because I never looked anybody in the eye. I was staring at my phone. I was mentally somewhere else. I was not paying attention and I wasn't present. So I give people a challenge. For the next 24 hours, say hello. Look people in the eye and say hello. No, don't stare them down and give them a threat. But say to them, so say you're getting in your Uber. It tells you on your phone who your Uber driver is. Say their name. When you say people's names, certain parts of their brain light up. Just say their name, and for 24 hours, turn every transaction, buying groceries, getting in an Uber, getting in an elevator, getting on a plane, whatever you do in your life, turn every transaction you can into an interaction and see how you feel at the end of the day. Because we are not seeing and hearing each other. And that's the first step, is to reestablish some of these weak ties. So if you found this video helpful, you can click on the link below, how we can solve the loneliness epidemic. I'm Heather McGowan. Thank you.